And we are live. Oh my goodness, Marilise, thank you for joining us. Number one, she's all the way from Africa, so you know that I love our global community. And she's somebody that I love to catch up with on a monthly basis. And so we're doing kind of a twofold here where I get to catch up on what she's really has happening, and you get to be introduced or reintroduced to who Marilise is. So welcome.
Thank you, Debbie. I so love spending time with you, and thank you for having me on your show.
Well, I would love for you just to introduce, a little bit of who you are, but more than that, who is Marilise from that soul essence? Because I think that when people actually understand that, they're going to perk up and really want to listen to this interview.
Oh gosh, yeah. So from a soul essence, I love that. And I love the energy and the feel of that. So I am someone who absolutely loves to connect with people and really connect deep with people. And I have spent my whole career, my whole life, I should say, really giving so much of myself, really one of those heart-centered individuals, and, losing my way a little bit in the process, thinking I was going to be a corporate executive for my whole career. And then about 8 years ago, just had this moment of enough is enough, and realizing that I was selling my soul in an environment that, was expecting me, or maybe I was expecting me to fit into a box, and that was a box that I was never meant to fit into. So I stepped away, and that's sort of how ROAR was born. And ROAR was really me learning for myself, first and foremost, that, in order for me to connect authentically with who I am and what I want and my essence, my soul essence, I had to find my authentic purpose. I really had to connect with, my passion and my mission and, my whole calling in life, which is to help and empower people to speak up, to find their raw and now their more. And so I really had to learn that for myself. And now I have the privilege of helping others to really tap into that authentic purpose, tap into their power, standing in their power, fully in their power, and finding the courage. Courage is a big theme in my curriculum. Courage to speak up, courage to speak your truth.
Wow. So there was a lot in that introduction, and I hope that you captured it all. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us, and anybody else that is joining us. We love to see globally where we're all from. So that is exciting in itself. Marilise, let's go back to that curriculum, because we all live our curriculum first, and then we heal from our curriculum, and then we help take it out into the world. What was that pivotal point where you knew that the things you'd gone through needed to be turned into something to empower others?
So I think it's I sort of label myself often as an accidental entrepreneur. It's like when people's like, oh, it's amazing, you have your own business. I'm like, yes, but I started it with no plan. I started it literally on my knees, not knowing what I was going to do with my life, because my whole identity was wrapped up in a corporate identity as a director, as an executive, as, someone who has a big team. And so suddenly, that moment when I didn't have it anymore, it was like, okay, on my knees, starting from scratch. So I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And then you remember. So I think we all have it in us. We just bury it. We bury it very deeply because we think there's a certain way and a certain expectation of society for us in terms of women in particular, in terms of how we show up and how we actually expect it to behave, expect it to be. And that's very confusing, not just for ourselves, but for other people as well. So it was a journey in terms of like, for probably a couple of years, I was on my own healing journey. And just in terms of getting back on my feet, getting my health back. So physical health initially was something I really prioritized, and that was sort of the springboard for everything else. And then finding good mentors, good colleagues, good friends, and putting myself into communities where I could see, you know, what is possible, you know, and being invited into possibility, and now having the honor and the privilege of inviting other people into possibility, you know, having navigated that breakpoint moment, and now how you can emerge from that, you know, that feeling of my whole life is falling apart, but actually it's actually falling into place, bizarrely. With the benefit of hindsight, of course.
Oh my goodness, with the benefit of hindsight. So, I mean, that really goes back to that things are happening for us, not to us. And at the time, I can feel in your story that you felt like it was happening to you. What are you now coaching women through when they come to you and they're really in the midst of that almost victimhood, almost like, why did this happen to me? And how do you pull them around to see it the way you see it now today?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's varied depending on where the individual's at, you know. So it's a difficult question to answer as a sort of a box standard answer. But I think the overriding essence is that you have all the power inside of you to make all your dreams come true, right? You have infinite potential. Now, that is a bit of a stretch for most people to actually tap into, to believe initially. So it's a big shift in perspective, in thought and thinking, but it is really about how do I shift from like this fear-based thinking and essentially thinking I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm too old, I haven't done it by now, I'm never going to do it. You know, it's all that sort of fear-based thoughts that we tap into. And how do we transform that into more of a, you know, a conversation where we're kind and compassionate, mostly with ourselves. So for me, the whole navigating the I'm not enough to I'm good enough, I'm more than enough, being kind to myself, being compassionate with myself first and foremost, that was a big shift. So that's kind of initially what we work with, is kind of recognizing. And so ROAR, the first step of the 4-step ROAR process is recognize. And this is not just about the most important bit about noticing what you're noticing. So be becoming very conscious and aware of your thoughts and your feelings, you know. So again, you know, we are so like, hey, Carmen, we are so conditioned to intellectualize everything. And actually, you know what, as women, we are so needing for ourselves to actually tap into our heart space more. And so to then build on the curriculum, and this is now how MOAR is emerging, is really about the masculine and the feminine and the beautiful play between the energies. And so the masculine being like, you know, you are meant for more, and, you know, going for gold, pursuing your dreams, big goals, big dreams, you know, taking bold, messy action at the same time that you are already more than enough, which is tapping into the feminine energy, which talks to, you know what, this is about ability to receive. This is about inviting compassion, inviting ease, inviting peace. And it's that beautiful space that we want to navigate. So that's really where my curriculum is at right now. And so very excited to share, you know, obviously more about MOAR, which is kind of the evolution now of my ROAR journey.
Oh my goodness. Number one, I love your passion for this. You really do obsess and know your audience so well. And we know that because you lived it. So you had to go through this, but really understand what you were going through and how that evolution is actually helping you even be more, but you already were more. So like, that's such a twist on words. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's go back, Marilise, because you are an author. You actually have the book ROAR, and you are a TEDx speaker. Do you want to talk about how those two things of expressing your own thoughts, feelings, words helped you to heal and now is helping other people to heal?
Yes, so exactly that. You know, when I started this entrepreneurial journey, literally knowing absolutely nothing about business and not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with my life, I had some ideas, but quite early on in the process, I just qualified or certified as a high performance coach, and just being in that community with Brendan Burchard and, you know, like amazing people. And again, you cannot underestimate the power of community, and what a beautiful community are you building here, Debbie. It's just beautiful and phenomenal. And I'm so privileged to be a part of that and to be on this journey with you. Community is absolutely everything. So that for me was a big catalyst, and the confidence I think that I gained from having mentors in my life at the time who inspired me to write a book. And so I remember the day when I signed up with a publisher. This is a publisher in England who sort of help entrepreneurs create a business book. So it's kind of like, okay, it's to package your curriculum so that you can help people. And that was phenomenal because, you know, I went to the gym in the morning and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. And I phoned them and I signed up and I paid the deposit and I signed the contract. And then that evening, 12 o'clock, I couldn't sleep. I'm like wide awake, you know, rabbit eyes. I'm just like, I cannot do this. And emailed the publishers saying, can we please just rewind, go back? I don't want to do this. This is not, I can't write a book. What was I thinking? And then obviously they came back and just said, you'll be fine. We've got you. And that's kind of how the process started. And it wasn't a fun process. I found it very, very hard to write the book, and I needed all the help. Like I needed coaching and everything. To shifting really to now with the second book I'm writing, which I'm self-publishing, by the way, where I'm really enjoying the process. So that in itself for me has been a very, very big shift in terms of being very intentional about why am I doing this, and not doing it if I'm not actually enjoying it, you know. So it's being really, really honest with myself about, you know, the reasons why this book is being birthed and, you know, why I'm writing this book. And you're asking about the healing journey. And I think that's so pertinent because I always say to people that year when I wrote Roar, which was 6 years ago, so that was about 2 years into my healing journey after my corporate crash, I should say. That was really interesting because then I, you know, when I was writing things down, I was really like having to dig deep, and that cathartic experience, that healing experience was very, it was amazing, and it was really tough at the same time because I then had to not just heal from the whole corporate bullying, but then also go right back to me as an 8-year-old, where, you know, where there was the sexual abuse. And so realizing and making the connection between the bullying that was happening some 40 years later and obviously the other experience I had when I was a child. So that for me was and also the TEDx experience, going even deeper into that and actually standing on a stage and saying that out loud, having never intended to talk about it. That was a true gift. Again, with the benefit of hindsight, at the time, tough, but now it's because I always felt like, as me authentically, that is such a core part of my story that I couldn't leave it out. So yeah,
Wow.
beautiful.
Wow. Thank you for taking us down that path a little bit, because there could be women here watching this right now that know they have a story to tell. They know that it's actually part of their healing journey, and yet they're scared to death to, you know, start the process. I love that you kind of went into it and almost from the opposite end. Like, coaching said, I need to do this. I'm a high performance coach. How do I get my word out there? And then the healing kind of snuck in along the journey. And this has evolved to who you are today and how you can really put yourself into the shoes of those that you coach. Do you want to speak to that as how it's made it more relatable to your clients?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, very, very important. Everything that I coach, or that I don't even know if it's coaching. I always want to say it's more co-creating, because, I learn as much from my clients than, they probably learn from me. And it's like being mirrors and growing together. So for me, it's very like, the relationship is special, because, I always go away with personal learnings myself. I'm a student first, teacher second, vice versa, so for me, that's really important. Yes. So for me, the reason I feel so strongly about you can only really help people with scenarios that you've personally navigated is because as a 19, 20-year-old student, I had a severe eating disorder and was kind of in and out with psychologists. And every time I go to a psychologist and I'm like, I just feel and I just sense that they're speaking out of a textbook. I'm like, can't go there, can't go back. And there was probably 3 people like that I saw once, and I just couldn't go back because they didn't understand me. I felt that they didn't understand me. And then the 4th person I saw was the person who I knew. She never told me, but I just knew that she'd navigated similar things with the way she engaged with me. So I think from a very, very young age already, I've had that strong, like, you don't raise an opinion on other people's lives if you haven't personally navigated that yourself.
Wow. I could go down a whole conversation of that. And I so can hear you and feel you. If somebody is just like, oh, you can see in their mind, they're like, go to the textbook. What would they do about this? What would they do about that? Yeah. But to actually fully see and hear and know the person in front of you, you're right. That's not just coaching. That's healing in a unit. So let's have another conversation about that someday, Marilise. I want
a series.
A series. I want to, before we go into a little bit more about the workplace well-being, I want to circle back because you have a lot of history, a lot of, yes, life's experience that we've just talked about, but a lot of, let's say, titles and accolades. And I know that sometimes heart-centered entrepreneurs don't want to go to all the places and all of the certificates, but I think it's really important for people to understand how well-rounded you are in what you bring to the table with your coaching.
Right. Okay. So I started life as an accountant. So I became a chartered accountant. I think it's called a CFA in England. In the States. So I qualified as a chartered accountant. That got me into PwC, a global accounting firm that I spent 16 years with, and was a phenomenal journey because I literally started my articles, we call it like your work experience, in order to qualify. And the first day I knew that I wanted to be the person who was teaching us in the front of the room. And 3 years later, I became the training manager for the Western Cape region, which was the sort of area I worked in at the time. And that then opened this world of training and development, people and change, transformation, behavioral change. And when I then moved to England in 2004, still with PwC, I moved into consulting full-time, doing people and change work and working primarily on finance transformations because of my accounting background, my finance background. And then back in 2010, when I returned to work after my second son was born, I just realized that the firm was creating a new division, cybersecurity division, and services for clients. And then I spoke to a colleague who opened this conversation with me about, Marilise, we're trying to solve a people problem, fundamentally a people problem. This is not a technology problem. It's actually a people-related problem. And that just, miraculously opened this new career, which I now spend all my time doing cybersecurity awareness and culture work. 13, 14 years later, and in my own business as a consultant, I really advise organizations on how to make people your strongest defense against cyber attacks. How do you make people, how do you embed secure mindsets and habits into your organizational cultures? And that ties very closely with the work well-being aspect, because work well-being relies on psychological safety and cultures that are psychologically safe, where people can speak up, where people can roar. So I feel like it's really come full circle,
It really has. And thank you for allowing us to see the full circle there. Let's go deeper into that full circle moment, because I love that your background, your history, your titles, your accolades has actually set you up 100% for success in what you're doing today, both in your consulting and your coaching. And I don't know if consulting and coaching feel separate to you, but to me, they do a little bit. And I'd like you just help us understand how those two things fit together now.
Yeah, so I tried to keep the two things very separate, because I had this terrible, toxic kind of work experience in my kind of cybersecurity work in the early days. I really wanted to move away from cybersecurity. So I was very, very determined to leave the industry. I didn't want to stay in the industry. My situation was as such that as a provider for my family, I had to be sensible, so the consultancy work was the big earner. And so I carried on doing consultancy work for my, self-employed, but contracts for big clients. And that just steadied the ship. And it was a very good income source. Still is, because I still do it today. But in my mind, the two things were separate, because I was very much like, that's only temporary until this coaching thing is up and running. And it's still evolving and it's still developing. So I'm pivoting slowly that the coaching is becoming more and more prominent, and its volumes and it's more clients, but it's still not quite there where I can sort of financially stand on my 2 feet in terms of just coaching and training work. And so the scaling of that, takes some time. And so what I've learned over the last sort of 4 or 5 years is how much my two worlds align in terms of consulting on cybersecurity, behaviors and culture work, and all the stuff that I'm learning in my ROAR curriculum and in my MOAR curriculum applies beautifully everywhere. So it's like the worlds are becoming seamlessly, just merging, closer, and to the point now where I don't have this conflict anymore of cybersecurity works here and ROAR is here. It's kind of all now beautifully merged into sort of the curriculum applies regardless.
I love it. I love that you've gotten to this point. Other people on the outside can see the connection long before me, you, the person in the middle. It's like, nope, I'm just going to move over to this later. Like everything you said is so familiar to many people that are changing or growing or stepping into something new. They feel like they have to leave something in order to get to the other, but it does come full circle, and all of the things that you've done bring you to the success today, which takes me to the part about this workplace well-being survey that you're doing, because I believe that also is a connection between your two worlds.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, so I wanted to invite people to actually complete the Wellbeing survey. So this is particularly in the context of work, but very importantly, I position work as work-life integration. So work is life and life is work. You cannot separate the two things. And so when people talk about work-life balance, I'm like, no, we cannot do that, because, we have to integrate those worlds and align those worlds. And so the workplace well-being, or the work well-being study, and workplace is also quite like tricky these days, because what is a workplace? So I had to be very careful when I created the survey to move away from the sort of traditional workplace thinking, because people work from everywhere now. So yeah, there's a ton of work that's gone into the survey. And Debbie, you and Shannon and Jen and the team and everybody who supports me monthly have created and given me such amazing feedback. So we've gone through iterations of the survey, but now we've got something that's really there to help you reflect on where you are currently in terms of your work well-being. It also helps me because I collect the data for my book. So I want to put some of that research data in my book, my new book, MOAR, Making Work Magic, Inside and Out. And that will be published in November, December this year. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. And this work wellbeing study is also, I think so valuable for you at a personal level, but it's also as a thank you for completing the survey, I will gift you a complimentary copy of my electronic copy of my book when it publishes. So just as a thank you. So I wanted to make sure that it's, the most valuable commodity is our time. And I wanted to make sure that I thank you for the 20 or 30 minutes that you spend completing it. So yeah, that's in essence, what we're asking you to do today. So thank you in advance.
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating as I watch you and many of the other people, women in our circle, that we really link arms and collaborate together and watch the growth that's happening. And I want this for every person. I want this for every woman for sure. And I want this for every person in every workplace. I have a question, and I hope that I word this right, but what are some of the hidden costs of high-performing women to their health and to their families? What are some of the hidden costs when you really think you're a go-getter, a high-performer woman, and yet life maybe can be falling apart?
Yeah, I think there's hidden cost at every level, emotional, spiritual, mental, even purpose, relational, so you compromise your relationships with the people that you care about the most. For me, I have a husband that loves me unconditionally. I've got two beautiful sons. I was working around the clock, and they just kind of carried on with their lives. And the moment I was kind of like out of that corporate environment and back present with them, they'd sort of learned to cope without me. And that really broke my heart, initially. I mean, obviously we got back to a good space with that. So I would say from a relational perspective, that's the biggie for me, speaking from personal experience. I think the purpose, when you it's that sort of almost like your soul knows, right? So if you do something and you sacrifice, there's like a yearning, and there's a kind of something's kind of slowly but surely dying inside you. And that's not something that you necessarily know, you cannot see, you cannot touch it. That's definitely a hidden cost, but it catches you out, so you get to this one day where your body screams, like you've ignored these whispers, and then suddenly your body just screams. And that's where the physical costs come in, because then you discover that you've got aches and pains and stress, and there's lots of dis-ease then that happens in the body to show you and to tell you and to cry out like stop, please just help. So I mean, the list goes on, Debbie, but I think it's for me personally, it was the physical like my physical health and the anxiety attacks that I got on a sort of almost daily basis, especially when I was in that toxic environment. And then also the cost, the compromise in my relationships with the people that I love the most, and then selling my soul. I think that ultimately is the biggest hidden cost.
Yeah. So anybody that is resonating with this, maybe it's the very first time you thought about it this way of what is the hidden cost? How am I compromising myself, my values? What is my body, my physical body? And what is my soul trying to speak to me? I think it would be really beneficial for you, number one, to get Marilise's book, Roar, but also just to get in her world and connect. This is going to be like the last question before I let you summarize it up, but I feel like there's a conversation here about energy and currency that we could bring up.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. I love that you've presenced that. So very much, I'm challenging current approaches to work well-being, and I'm challenging leaders who care about the well-being of their people. And I'm saying that we fundamentally need a new approach. We cannot carry on, buying wellness apps and, having free fruits in the office and standing desks, and people are still burnt out, right? That's the reality. And why do you burn out? Because of energy. So energy is a currency. And so the concept of energy as a currency for me is about, and this is tapping into spirituality as well. So I want to be open and transparent about that, because I'm not going to shy away from that. But it's this whole idea of masculine and feminine. So in my curriculum, how I'm positioning it now with MOAR is you are meant for more. And that's a very, go-getter, push, masculine energy. And so you've got to have that in order to go for your dreams, to go big, to go bold, to dare, to be brave, that sort of thing, At the same time, you are already more than enough. So you're meant for more, and you are already more than enough. And the already more than enough is the feminine. And that's the, how good can you have it? How good are you prepared to have it? So that's where you're inviting you. First of all, you're receiving, which is hard, especially, if you're not used to asking for help. So receiving, and also self-compassion, kindness to self. And so for me, it's about this beautiful balance, this beautiful dance, and the divine in each, masculine, feminine, and how we bring our whole selves to work. And how leaders allow their people to bring their whole selves to work, which is a very authentic, true version of yourself. That's not asking you to check, your emotions at the door, it's that sort of thing. It's like, let's just, see the individual as the whole person, the whole human, as opposed to expecting certain behaviors because we're in a work setting now.
Oh my goodness. Again, we need to have you back to go into that.
Yes, I'd love to.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last question. I said that one was the last, but I think this will help you tie in anything that you feel like I've missed as well. So feel free to take as long as you want for this. What's your message to the woman that feels like she's lost herself, lost her voice, and this is that awakening? This is that moment of recognizing that she matters.
Yeah. This is going to be surprising to you, but you are exactly where you are supposed to be. And if we can just get to that point where, having that, again, that self-compassion with, okay, I may feel all these things, regret, shame, blame. And if you can just get yourself to a place that that's all in the past, it doesn't matter anymore. Where you are right here, right now, in the moment, in the now, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And now you can influence and get into the driver's seat of your life. And you can really, really take that driver's seat, like the steering wheel, and design and create and live a life that you absolutely love.
I love it. And I apologize. I was typing and I have me on stage instead of you. You didn't miss a beat in your voice, or I would have caught it. But that's real life as I'm multitasking here. You know, Marilise, it's just been so beautiful to catch up with you. But I hope that the audience, and I'd love to hear your takeaways, I hope that the audience really understands not only Marilise's passion, but all of that expertise and that's bringing it in full circle. And I would love to invite you that if you have somebody that needs to hear this message, to tag them, to share this with them. If you're looking for a speaker for your conference or even for a podcast interview, ask Marilise. She's beautifully prepared at all moments and can easily create this type of atmosphere. And then last but not least, I would love to invite everybody into the Be Extraordinary Women's Network, because this is the place that we truly share extraordinary women and their extraordinary stories. And so thank you, Marilise, for being one of the co-creators in that community. And thank you for always shining your light so brightly.
Thank you, Debbie. And, I am so honored and grateful that I get to do life with you. I will say that again, and I want people to really, really hear this. You are an incredible human, soul, I should say. And I'm, I can go into detail in terms of how we know each other, but I just knew that you were going to be in my life for a very, very long time when we met in person the very, very first time. So that has not changed a bit. And it's just wonderful to see how you are growing and you are stepping into your light. And also that gives me courage to do it as well. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been phenomenal. I love that we had people here commenting. We feed on your energy. And then there's the next. Please share. This is really what lights us up, but it also lights the world up. And so let's continue with that ripple effect. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Lots of love.